We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is a habit, not an act. You have routines, and your routines are based on your circumstances. So how then does this quote from Aristotle measure up? Let's find out coming up next. Well, hello friend, I'm Mary Beth from the atwhatcostblog.com, and on this channel we are learning how living with less leaves a little more room for Jesus. We're diving deep into our faith, and if you're here long enough, you'll get to see just how real our life gets sometimes. If that sounds like a journey you'd like to be on, I would love for you to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content. Now, let's talk more about routines. The definition of routines is a sequence of actions that we do repeatedly. So let's look back at that quote from Aristotle. Is simply practicing excellence repeatedly what it takes to get us feeling and believing that we are in fact excellent? I don't know about you, but that doesn't measure up so well for me. I am inconsistent, my circumstances change, and sometimes my routines feel like they've gotten a little off kilter, regardless of how prepared I feel for them or whether or not I'm just winging it. Sometimes my routines are just not making the grade. The truth is, there's a delicate balance between what we want to do and what we don't want to do. Paul speaks about this in Romans chapter 7. In verse 15, he dives into this complex issue of battling what we desire against what we actually do. In verse 15, he says, "For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing that I hate." You see, our routines are more than simply just picking a behavior and repeating it over and over and over again until we go on autopilot. The routine is more than just deciding to engage in excellent behavior and doing it enough that we do in fact become excellent. The things that we do ultimately define who we are, but they're somewhat based on our circumstances and a whole lot based on our pursuit of wisdom or folly. With all of this social distancing, it seemed like my routines were slipping away. As things started to feel out of control, the tighter the grip became on trying to hang on to those routines. That's what I discovered in Proverbs about this battle between doing what we think we should do and relying on something bigger than ourselves to help us get it done. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 26 says, "Those who trust in themselves are fools, but those who walk in wisdom are kept safe." Boy, did I feel like a fool. I felt like it was all up to me to keep our routines going regardless of the circumstances. Because I had a good concrete routine before the circumstances changed, I should be able to control all of those elements and keep my routine moving along. Boy, was I wrong. Before our family discovered family minimalism and simple living, it was a struggle just to get through our day-to-day tasks. I wanted to be in control of everything and prove to the world that I could, in fact, do everything. But that just wasn't realistic. I needed to know more about what was going wrong so that I could make changes that would be beneficial for everyone. That was true wisdom. See, there's a science behind routines. Now, I sort of knew this, but I guess when you have not learned something new in a while, like really new, not just I found a new recipe and I'm gonna try it out, like a really new task. You know, when you're trying a new recipe, you still are familiar with your kitchen, you probably have all of the tools that you need, and you may even be familiar with the ingredients, but that's not the case all the time with a new task. When you add new players in to the mix and the circumstances change so drastically like they have here in the last few weeks, I really had to take a step back and look at how we develop routines so that I could start the process of recovering some of those precious routines that give us a sense of normalcy. So building routines is all about a cycle. There's a cue, that's followed by executing the routine, and then some type of reward. So let's say, for example, you are getting up in the morning and getting ready and getting out the door. The cue would be your alarm clock. You hear your alarm clock go off and you know just what to do. Maybe after you've snoozed it a few times, because let's face it, sometimes kids are up late and we're tired. Not saying I haven't done it. But let's say that once you've turned your alarm clock off, you head into the bathroom, take your shower, get dressed, head downstairs, and make a pot of coffee. That's executing the routine. You probably do it the same way every day. And then we have the reward. Now for me, it is that wonderful, steaming, hot cup of coffee that just sort of brings me to life. Prior to social distancing, I had a pretty good cue. On Monday mornings, we would get up, I would get my kids dressed and out the door and off to school. My work day would start and I would start chugging along for the day. Unfortunately, once the structure of all of our other routines of the kids going to school and working home by myself, the rest of the routine sort of went out the window. See, I took the cue part out. Just like when you oversleep your alarm, you don't have that alarm clock to get you up. It's really hard for your body sometimes to actually get the hint that it's time to get up. So let's explore where some of the breakdowns in this cycle may happen that cause our routines to feel a little out of whack. Let's look at the cue. It's morning time and your alarm does not ring. You oversleep and the whole rest of your day just feels out of sorts. What about executing the routine? Let's say your alarm clock does go off, but your water heater's broken and now you don't get that hot shower that really helps you to feel invigorated in the morning. Now, maybe you get a cold shower and you get invigorated, but you get a little aggravated too. That may upset the rest of the apple cart. Then our reward. So your alarm goes off, you get up, you get moving, you're ahead of schedule, you get to your favorite coffee shop and they're closed. Again, it can derail our entire day when some of our routines don't go the way that they should, or at least the way that we believe they should. Our brains need for us to be able to go on autopilot, and routines help us do that. We get so much information during the day, there's no way that our brain could handle everything coming in and processing it with a hands-on approach. We want to establish routines so that our brain can just go on autopilot. It knows what to expect and it just starts going through the motions, which is actually very beneficial for us. And I know that we can feel the frustration when there is a breakdown in that system. We have to make too many decisions, and oftentimes our brains can get very fatigued when we have had to handle every issue that comes across the plate. And these could be big things or they could just be little things. It could be a simple decision like, how much creamer do I need in my coffee? And should I take this way or that way to work? All of those decisions can add up, and the more that we have to go off of our autopilot, the worse it can get and the more fatigued we can become. That kind of fatigue really can draw us back into that self-reliance, that attitude of, if it's to be, it's up to me, which in so many ways can be beneficial. But when it comes to our own sense of well-being, we want to draw from a deeper well. And this is another reason for me that this idea of practicing excellence every day, leading to a life of excellence, just doesn't make sense. I don't want to live a life of excellence. I want to live a life of righteousness. And that requires me to take a step back and look at the times where I am depending only on myself to get the job done. I never measure up. I need to look to a source that is greater than I am, a consistency that even in the midst of things feeling discombobulated, I can find an anchor in the storm. And that's exactly what we find when we take a step back and look through the lens of biblical living. We want for there to be abundance, but we want it to be rooted and grounded in the abundant life that Christ offers. We have to be the gatekeepers of our actions. When we're off routine, oftentimes the first thing to go are the things that bring us the most life. We skip our quiet time. We don't dig into the scriptures. We may not even take time to pray. I know I certainly have been there. And those are the things that are going to keep us feeling a lot more well-balanced. So I would encourage you to take a step back today, look at the routines, maybe look at your lack of routine and see where you may be able to use a little bit of wisdom to increase maybe your productivity or just your general sense of well-being. I'm so glad you stopped by today, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.